Experience Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania in 3D.
Scott Lang, you have a daughter. You're an Avenger. But out here, you're out of your league.
On February 17th.
Kang's a monster. He can shatter existence.
An Avenger.
I don't care what he can do. I'm getting us home.
Must face a conqueror.
You may not want her to watch this.
I'm sorry, Cassie.
Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. Experience it in 3D. February 17th. Rated PG-13. May be inappropriate for children under 13.
Hey everyone, Jamie here. Wanted to slip in a quick message before the episode proper to let you guys know that we actually recorded this episode on March 5th. And the reason why that's important is that we recorded this episode before the criminal charges were brought against Jen Shah. So I mention this because in this particular episode, we are going to talk about Jen, and we are going to get into Jen's areas of vulnerability. We're definitely getting into Jen's humanity. And I can imagine that for some of you, it might be a bit frustrating or difficult if we're essentially not addressing what now would be the elephant in the room, which is, of course, the criminal charges against Jen Shah. So I just want you guys to know that Piper and I have actually already recorded a follow-up episode to this episode that is exclusively about Jen Shah's quote-unquote alleged fraud. And we get into all of it. We get into the underlying psychology of her criminal activities and where she may have been coming from in her mind. So just know that that's coming. And also know that I still stand behind everything that we discuss and explore in this particular episode. Everything still feels true to me. In terms of the areas of vulnerability and humanity that we explore in Jen. Probably not going to be a surprise to any of you to know that here in the deep dive, we're really holding space for the complexity of humanity. And in that place of complexity, villains have their humanity and heroes have their shadow side. So in this particular episode, we are going to be getting into Jen Shah's humanity. And I think that it actually is kind of interesting to hold the themes that we explore relating to Jen in this particular episode and to then see how they actually connect to the themes and the threads we're going to explore in the subsequent episode about Jen. And they actually do connect, which of course is unsurprising because I think ultimately everything is connected. So with that said, sit back, relax. I hope you enjoy this episode getting into Salt Lake City, and I will see you guys on the other side. Hi, and welcome to Deep Dive with Jamie Stein, where we take a deep dive look at all things reality TV, pop culture, and the world at large. I'm an intuitive and an empath, which means I pick up on the thoughts, feelings, and energy percolating in other people and the world around me. I believe there is meaning waiting to be found at every turn if you're willing to see it. So join me as we dismantle everything from trash TV to high spiritual concepts and learn more about ourselves, each other, and how we're all connected. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Deep Dive with Jamie Stein. I am here today with my good friend and colleague and my favorite Housewives comrade in arms, Piper Sample.
Hi, Jamie. So good to be here.
How are you today?
I'm doing okay. How are you doing?
I'm doing okay, too. It feels like a little weird out there. You know, we're recording this on March 5th, and so I think there's a lot of awareness of approaching what is the year anniversary, at least in this country, for the real onset of COVID-19 and the lockdown, and definitely feels like it's bringing people to different places. And I guess I'll also just say for me, it's also the year anniversary of my dog passing. So Bobby died on March 5th. I don't know. I'm with all of that. I mean, I was aware at the time, like his death for me seemed to usher in the pandemic. There was this event that happened where, you know, my companion of 16 years, it was time for him to go. it was this feeling of like, okay, like, there's a new normal here. My life's changing. And then it just felt like the world changed. Yeah, I don't know. It really hit me last night. I knew the anniversary was coming up, but I think because there was a way in which I was so surrendered to his passing when it happened, like when it finally came, I was one of those people who just dreaded the thought of the day that he wouldn't be here anymore. And, as you know, because you were a witness to my process, when his health started to break down and basically the writing was on the wall, the whole process felt so guided. And by the time it was time to make that decision, for him to go, I just felt how right it was. Like I knew it was his time to go. I knew it was time for me to let him go. I knew it was time for him to let me go. Like I knew that relationship had kind of reached its completion. So I was really surprised by how surrendered I was to the process. And it felt very graceful to me and hopefully for him. So I think because of that, I've been a little bit surprised by kind of suddenly realizing last night, like, oh shit, tomorrow's the year anniversary. And then with that, realizing he's been gone for a year. And yeah, like his death for me ushered in this new phase of life in the world. And that's been going on for a year. And so I think I'm just with all of that today. And it's a lot for me, but also I feel like it's a lot for the world. Just, I think for all of us, kind of really holding this experience of an entire year.
Oof. That really touches me.
Do you find yourself affected or impacted by the year anniversary?
Well, right now I'm really impacted by just remembering your process around Bobby and just sort of feeling you in this moment. I have a dog as well, and he has been one of my lifesavers during this time, so my husband and I both constantly say, oh my God, I don't know what we would have done without Bodhi during this time. And so because of that, I'm just feeling you right now and just sort of taking in what you just said and just imagining losing someone that was so close to you for so long right before this sort of lockdown and then being sequestered without that companionship, so I'm aware of that first.
Yeah, it's interesting because a lot of people have said that, like, especially when people first found out that he died, they were saying, oh my God, it's so horrible for you, that would happen before the lockdown. I guess because of my experience where, he was really in hospice for a month. I was his caretaker. Bobby was like really healthy, his whole life. And then he just went down hard and really had a final month where it turned out he had 4 malignant tumors and, he just deteriorated really quickly. And I think because I was so deep in that process with him of being his caretaker, the truth of the matter is I was grateful in a way and relieved that he departed before the lockdown because I just kept thinking, of course, like, oh my God, what if I had been dealing with this? Like, how would I have navigated the trips to the emergency vet during COVID? And again, because it just felt so right to me. I mean, I literally saw his spirit team waiting for him the moments leading up to his death. They were waiting for him. I knew in every cell of my body, like, this is the moment you were supposed to go. So it wasn't even landing with me in that way of like, I can't believe he's not here. And it really felt to me like everything's different now.
It's complete.
Yeah, and Bobby's gone and the world's changed. And this is just, I almost couldn't even imagine him being here during this time. I mean, I still can't in a way, but maybe there is something happening here where maybe the anniversary of it, because it's like we all kind of hit the ground running, with COVID. And I say this as someone who I feel like I gave myself a lot of time and space to feel what was happening. And I wasn't one of those people who was like, how are you going to make use of your time? And, I definitely gave myself time and space to go slow. But I think even within that, I think it was impossible not to hit the ground running energetically on some level. And so, yeah, maybe now with this year anniversary, there is something that's sort of catching up to me and kind of saying like, oh my God, this dog isn't.
It's been a year.
Yeah, it's been a year without him. He hasn't been here. So much has changed. And I wonder, as I say that, Like, I wonder if that's part of what's going on in the collective too, of just, we've all been hitting the ground running. And I think especially too in recent months, now it feels like there's some sort of light at the end of the tunnel. I think that's true. Maybe whether it's totally true or not, that's the feeling in the air right now. And so, yeah, it has kind of been a nonstop current, right? And maybe the year anniversary is kind of one sort of marker to stop and say, holy shit, like, what have we been going through this year? It's a lot.
Yeah, I think especially being kind of the end of winter, there's something in the air anyway, as kind of the sun is starting to change. And, I'm noticing the days are just a little bit longer right now. And it does feel like there's a gearing up coming out of a slower time in some ways, but also a time that has been like a deeply hibernating type time. At least it was for me at some point. And then, I don't know, also very confusing. And even now coming out of it, like with vaccinations, there's so much information that is still so confusing. And what is happening, what is really happening right now around this virus. It had its way for sure with the world. And I think different people are responding in different ways, but collectively something is shifting with this, once I think the vaccinations started coming out. So I noticed it's just kind of a time where I'm like, I don't know if I ever really got a chance to figure out how I felt about this. And now it feels like it's coming to an end.
Well, that's what was coming to me as you were speaking. It's just, for me, it's this question of integration, and how do we integrate what's happened? And is there space to integrate what's happened? Because I do feel like, there's been a bit of a held breath through all of this. And it's like, there's been a held breath, and now there's the light at the end of the tunnel, which of course, it's exciting. And I feel that spirit of possibility. But I just hear the question, like, what the fuck just happened? You know what I mean? It's kind of like turning around and looking back and just being like, what the fuck just happened? And are we feeling this at all?
Yeah. And I mean, there were months where I was so deep in my own experience of getting the opportunity to slow down and really, binge watch TV and be impacted by that, do some reading, figure out like, okay, what's really important to me? Like this whole idea, I'm giving up my office in August. For a full year, I've been paying for this office. I'm like, I haven't needed it. I can go anywhere. We're like, let's get going. Let's travel. We're getting old. It's time. So in a way, it's really forced like this, kind of this recognition that, God, I'm doing things in a way that don't feel great, but I was doing it rotely. And I had an opportunity to look at that and go, all right, do I have to do it that way? Oh, well, gosh, I'm working remotely now. How can I work remotely anywhere in the world? And what would that look like? So I'm kind of excited to come out of this. But like you said, I don't think I'm glad you're bringing it up, because maybe this is an invitation or sort of a reminder that, okay, wait, there is something to integrate, even though I'm not quite sure what it is. What the fuck just happened? And I feel like something happened for me. I haven't gotten out of all my patterns yet, but I really saw them. And I feel like there's a chance to do it. It opened up something where life doesn't have to look the way that it was prior, during, or, we can create anything from here.
Well, and I know I mentioned this to you before, but, for me, there's just been I feel like I've been doing such deep work on myself and in such deep process, over this past year, and also aware, because I've been mostly isolated. I don't think I've even had space to really understand how the work I've been doing has been settling in, because I'm not really in relationship with people right now, so there's that whole piece of, getting back out into the world and actually being able to be relational with others. And I just have this feeling or sense that, it is going to reveal deeper and deeper layers of just what the fuck has happened. And, kind of how the work that I've been doing and everything that I've been hanging out in actually wants to kind of take root and reveal itself. So we'll see. Now, I think this is kind of a somewhat graceful segue, but speaking of charging forward without really stopping to feel and to integrate, I just keep getting images of Lisa Barlow storming off the set of the reunion of Salt Lake City. We are gathered here today to explore a little bit of the latest addition to the Real Housewives empire, the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. It's left quite an impression on the pop culture universe, and we wrapped up the 3-part reunion a few weeks ago, and it just felt like the right time. Actually, you and I we've not really discussed this at all.
No.
So this is kind of like we're popping the cherry, bursting the bubble, breaking the seal. That's the metaphor. We're breaking the seal right now, right here on this very podcast. So I had received a text message from you, I think after the first part, where you just simply said, you said something like you were just sort of shocked or overwhelmed by the level of just so much projection happening at the reunion, that everyone was just projecting onto everyone else. And for me, I just felt like that climaxed so intensely at the end of the second part, where you had Lisa and Heather going at it, and the cameras went down and they were on their break and they kept going at it, and then Lisa stormed off the set. And it just, to me, that was one of the most riveting pieces of Housewives footage in a long while, because to me, it felt so real. These are two women who are getting so deeply triggered in such core places. I felt like I was watching both of them just completely in their story. And so I thought that might be kind of a good jumping off point for us to maybe just sort of explore at least the dynamic there between Lisa, Heather, Whitney's a part of that. Obviously, Jen's a part of that. Meredith's kind of a part of that on the periphery, and see what we uncover.
With Lisa and Heather, they are so deeply rooted in their story.
Mm-hmm.
They are so deeply rooted. And it was like they are on two different planets about how they see what's going on. Literally two different planets. What I really kind of saw was the difference in the way they hold their faith in some way. There was something around Heather really kind of talking a lot about like how she holds this experience of being a good Mormon for a really long time against her nature.
Right.
And Lisa living this religion in her own way, right? Not really doing it the way, she's got an alcohol company. What does she call it? Mormon 2.0, whatever. And I think fundamentally, there's a huge difference even just right there. I think that informs a lot of the way they see each other.
Yeah. I mean, it's like there's so many flashes coming to me in terms of both of them from both points of view, even just as you say that. It's so complicated, right? Because it's like, I agree with you. I think on a fundamental level, yeah, Lisa, I think, represents to Heather just the judgmental, dismissive church that she was not good enough for, like all the way. And it just brings out that, I feel like that voice in her that's just like, see me, hear me, and just the outrage of a place where she felt like she was dismissed and she wasn't good enough. And at the same time, I also feel like that kind of, would you call it resentment or maybe jealousy, perhaps resentment around the fact that Lisa could find a way to walk with this journey, meaning the Mormon journey, in a way that's theoretically right for her, and she's not doing it perfectly, and somehow she gets away with it. And I feel like this voice in Heather that wants to say, like, why does she get away with it and I don't? It's not fucking fair. Like, why does she get to do it halfway and I don't? Why do I have to be all the way good and she doesn't? But then conversely, what I feel from Lisa's side to Heather, and I will have full disclosure, Lisa is one of those housewives. I have a weird soft spot for her. I like Lisa. There's a lot that I really like about Lisa. But what I want to say about Lisa is what I get off, or one of the things I get off Lisa towards Heather, it's kind of like, I don't even want to see this. I don't want to see the person who was let down by the church in some way. I don't want to see the person who's got like complicated feelings about the church in some way. Like, this doesn't fit in to my paradigm. And it's almost like if I take this in, it's going to challenge something in me or ask me to look at something in a more nuanced way that wouldn't be comfortable for me. I don't want to do that. So like, out of sight, out of mind. Yeah, I don't want to know it. I don't want to see it. I want to move on. She's over there in the corner of the room. Sort of let me look the other way. Let me just bulldoze right past this. And that even kind of her desire to make amends with Heather, it to me, it just sort of feels like it has this quality of, okay, let's get to it. Let's get to it. Let's be done. Because I don't want to see it. I don't want to look at it. I don't want to know. Let's just make up and be done and move on. You know, and then I can just keep going.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting because as you're saying this, I'm imagining both of them growing up in their families and the way that their family held this expectation in terms of faith. You know, I think it got brought out that a lot of people in Lisa's family had been divorced. You know, like her experience of being Mormon, it had, like you said, there was a lot more room for them to be maybe people that weren't just Mormon. And what my experience with Heather is, she grew up, you know, this lineage, it was deep in them. She came from a pioneering family, you know, like, I don't know when Lisa's family came into this faith, but Heather's was like deeply, deeply rooted. And she married a man who also came from that. And it was the first divorce in both of their families. So it was like a big deal. And the way that her experience of the way she was treated, I think after, or like the type of things that she felt about failing in some way as a Mormon wife, I think it impacted her in a very specific way that she's can't see that other people have a different experience in their faith. And Lisa, on the other hand, also is like, okay, in some way I see her seeing something, but she's not going to give it to Heather. Like, I'm not going to give you that, yes, this is the way everybody feels in the Mormon church. That's not true for me. And in that, it's like Heather can't get off it. Like, she feels very dismissed by Lisa. I feel Heather, I feel for her. She's got a lot of really deep insecurities. And I think maybe this divorce really impacted her in a way that helps her reflect on. She said something, somebody asked her if she'd ever been in love. And she's like, no, I loved somebody once, you know, in 5th grade, and he didn't like me back, you know, something like that. So to me, that speaks to somebody that, I don't know, struggled a bit in a younger time.
Oh, I think more than a bit. I've felt this way about Heather all along, but just hearing you speak is really deepening in my experience of it. I mean, I think this is a woman who has been outraged. I mean, I think she's betrayed herself deeply, you know, for the sake.
Over and over.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think her very marriage was a deep self-betrayal. And, you know, hearing her talk about it, she said it checked all the boxes. It was the perfect Mormon marriage. And I just get this image of like, yeah, truly this, to me, it looks like a 5-year-old girl with just a big smile on her face, you know, with a nice dress on, doing everything she thinks she's supposed to do that's good and right. And she's deeply betraying herself for the sake of what she thinks is expected of her. And in that place is just so fucking outraged about it. And I don't think she's even begun to touch the level of rage she has. I don't think she's begun to fully feel the impact of these self-betraying choices. And that's actually why I personally, I don't know what your experience of Heather has been throughout the season, but I've actually never trusted her all the way. Much in the same way that, like, I never fully trusted Brittany on Vanderpump Rules. I don't trust Marge on New Jersey. These sort of beloved, celebrated housewives or characters where I, you know, with Heather, I was watching her the whole season. I was like, yeah, everything she says sounds good. She's saying all the right things. She's sympathetic, and she is sympathetic, and I do feel for her. But I was just like, I don't trust this woman. Well, one, just intuitively something in me was saying I don't buy all this, but I just feel this is the woman who, by her own admission, has had such a deep investment in being like the good girl and the good Mormon and the perfect Mormon wife. And now I'm watching her be the beloved Real Housewife who's like saying all the right things and everyone loves her. And I was like, I don't trust this. I feel like she's in her same story where she is doing and saying all the right things. And she's presenting a certain face to the show. And in that place where she presents a certain face for the sake of like being good and being loved, I can feel it. She is fucking outraged. And in the place where she's outraged, I don't trust this. I feel like this is a woman who could do shitty stuff behind the scenes. And I felt like we started to see that come out at the reunion. But I've been feeling that all season long, where it's just like, just that rage, that clenched jaw of, you know, and the voice that says it's not fucking fair that I have to be good all the time, that I'm not seen, and I've got something to say about it. And like, it reminds me of like Fatal Attraction. I won't be ignored, you know? And with someone like Heather, that voice of I won't be ignored, it's underground. And so for me, when that voice is underground, I'm just sitting there like, so what are you doing behind the scenes? You know, what passive aggressive things are you doing that no one knows about?
It is a very passive aggressive dynamic for sure. And what I notice as you're talking, it's like there's such a deep need in her, you know, like I feel that really deep need to be seen a certain way. And it's not congruent with who she is completely, but she will she has learned from being in this dynamic, right? Over and over again, this is what you say, this is how you do it. In order to move things forward, these are the things that you say. And she does it from a place of needing something as opposed to really being in touch with what it is she is saying and doing. And with that, I think Lisa picks up on that and is kind of like, what the fuck do you want from me? I don't know what you want from me. Like, what is it that I've said, I'm sorry. I've said, you know, what my experience is. And it's like, it's like a dog with a bone. You are not going to let this go until I give you something, but I don't know what it is. And I don't think I have it for you. So let's just move on. And Heather's like, oh no, I don't need anything. You know, it's like, I've got it all together. Like I'm, believe me, I've moved on. But I think there is something about respect, you know, there's a deep way that I think maybe this betrayal of her own inner kind of wildness and nature that got really tamped down by her own need to be connected. And this is the other thing I'll say, Jamie, it's like, this is where I see this over and over again in group dynamics or, you know, in these housewife things. It's like, I think the systemic was so deep in this particular franchise because of this religious sort of narrative that kind of was a big part of what was going on. So the things that you see that are kind of being played out personally or interpersonally, I think they are deeply systemic issues and they're not being addressed that way. It's like, I think she's pissed at the church. Mm-hmm. She's mad, you know, like she gave everything. And then on the other side of it, this whole thing about being divorced and what that means. It's like, there's something that I feel she feels deeply betrayed by this church that she gave so much to. And now Lisa gets to do it, like you said, the way that she's doing it. And I think there's a lot of hypocrisy in that faith. I have a little bit of personal relationship with that culture. And there's a deep hypocrisy in the way some people live that faith. And I think Heather that's one of the projections, you know, it's like she expects Lisa to be the Mormon that she was and she's not. And like you said, she somehow gets away with it because she's fine with it.
Exactly. I mean, that's what's so am I cutting you off?
No.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much that you said that sparks different things. I mean, one, I want to say, like, yeah, absolutely. Heather has this demand, you know, I think on everyone, on the church, on Lisa, on everyone. It's like, you've got.
On Jen.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, that's a whole other thing. But it's like, you've got to see me a certain way. Like, you've got to see my pain. You've got to see my struggle. You've got to see my journey, how I see my journey. And it reminds me a little bit of like when we were talking about the demand that Leah has on other people in Real Housewives of New York, but then it's like she won't let people be where they are. Like, I feel a similar thing with Heather, where it's like this deep demand, like, you've got to see my journey the way that I see it, but I'm not going to accept you where you are on your journey. And it's like the demand of the child. And I think it's so fascinating, though, too, like bringing in the systemic. And I mean, you really name this. It's like it is the connection between the individual and the systemic, because it's like the way in which Heather feels betrayed and discarded by the church. I feel like it's just such a direct reflection of the way that she is discarded and betrayed herself. And I almost feel like that anger at the church, it's also... yeah, it's bound up in also self-directed anger of like, oh my God, I made these choices.
This is the thing, though. When you make those choices at a young age, you're socialized that way.
Oh, totally.
It's not really a choice then. You know what I'm saying? So I feel for that part of her. Excuse me.
No, totally. Yeah, no, she was socialized to make these choices. And I still think in that place, I'm sure there is also a place inside where she is angry at herself for betraying her own inner knowing. I'm not saying she should be angry at herself. And in fact, if I were working with her, if she did start, because that happens with clients all the time where I'm supporting them to go into their anger, they start directing it towards themselves. And it's like, no, let's back away from that, because that's you sort of keeping yourself stuck in this cycle. And instead, let's point the outrage outward. So I would want to support Heather to have her rage towards the church and have her rage towards her parents. But yeah, there are these choices that she's made, and I think she's made them again and again and again. And in that place, I just think there is pure outrage. And it's almost like if she surrenders the demand that anyone has to see her journey, I think that's the place where she has to fully feel the disconnection that she's been avoiding this whole time. The heartbreak of this disconnection of like, holy shit, no one's going to see me here, and... I have this family, presumably I love my family of origin, and it's like, for me, like, they're not going to see me, and that's heartbreaking to me.
Yeah, and deeper than that, I think there's also such a shame. I think she feels like she let down people somehow. Like, I think she's even said it before, but I think, as you're talking about what you're saying right here, I really feel for her, and I would want her to really know that she did what she was expected to do for connection, to stay in that culture, that family. She showed up and she did that, and there was a price that she paid. And then when there was another price later, when her husband left her, I think all that sense of failure is so raw. It feels so raw. And I think it plays out when she starts feeling a little less than, it just takes her to that place where she needs to defend in some way. And I think that defend kind of shows up in a demand. Mm-hmm. Like it's probably so deeply painful. Like I can only imagine the weight, the way she describes, like all those ancestors, because from what I understand, these, maybe I should look into it before I even say this out loud, but there is some sort of family seal that they're sealed as a family. So I think they have like these planets that they, after they pass, that they're eternally bound. And, I don't know if there's a threat there for her that she isn't going to belong. But I feel something around the belonging piece that is really scary for her.
Yeah, and it's just also this voice. It's just like, no matter how hard I try, no matter what I do, it's never good enough.
Exactly.
You know, and it's interesting because it begs the question, you know, why is that someone's pattern as opposed to, you know, someone else who can grow up in that faith and everything they do is good enough?
Can we talk about that with Lisa? I mean, I know you like her, and I don't disagree with that. I especially like the way she kind of handled things with Jen. You know, there was some really endearing moments that I had with her, and there were some places where I'm like, she's not quite in reality with her, the way she thinks about herself, you know, the whole race car situation.
That was amazing.
Can we just briefly touch on that?
Oh, let's more than briefly. Let's dive into it.
I mean, that edit was amazing. It did everything for me because I'm like, wow, that woman really thinks she is something else. And it's, you know, granted, she's gorgeous and she's obviously successful. She loves her family loves her. But yeah, her sense of being good at things was clearly played out there. What did you see there with that?
With the car?
Yeah, the car.
To be honest, I just sort of took it at surface value and thought it was funny, you know, but you are bringing a new dimension to it where it's like, it's true. Her self-image is not matching up to, you know, what we could call reality. I mean, I think the thing I'll bring in with Lisa that was on my mind, and I think this is probably connected to what you're bringing in. We were talking about how Heather has a demand on Lisa to see things a certain way, and Lisa's kind of like, I don't want to see it that way. And in that place, I do have compassion for Lisa in a certain way of, you know, back off her, like let her be who she's going to be and let her see things how she wants to see things. But I will say conversely, and I spoke a bit about this earlier, I do feel something in Lisa that's also saying, I won't see this. You know, it's not even just like, I don't see it, so back off. It's like, I will not see this. I don't want to see it. So don't ask me to look. Mm-hmm. And in that, I kind of feel an energy in her where it's like, just go, 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 go. And the other thing that I also want to kind of bring in about Lisa too, that I've noticed about her is she's interesting because she's clearly really defensive. I mean, I'm remembering back even early in the season when both Heather and Whitney had kind of issues with her. They were at some dinner. It was like Whitney was talking about, I think it was that she thought Lisa was spreading rumors about her as a swinger. And then Heather was bringing in the fact that Lisa was claiming she didn't know her. And Lisa just immediately just spun everything back around on the two of them and literally said to them, like, you guys are in projection because you're triggered by me and this, that, and the other. And even at the reunion, you just see she's so, like, the deflection shields go up so quickly. And yet my sense of Lisa is that I feel like she's the type of person who in that moment where something's coming at her, it's like alarm bells are going off and it feels like danger, danger, danger. I just got to do what I got to do to kind of like get this off me. And then I'll go into my corner, like when I'm alone and it's safer, and I'll think about that. Like, I don't know. I get that sense with Lisa that there is something in her that actually will contemplate and take things in. But I don't think she's ever going to do it in the presence of other people. And I don't think she's going to do it in the presence of people who are like lobbying things or have issues with her. So I've been interested in that. I've been interested in that part of her that won't kind of engage with people in a way where she's willing to hang out in the moment, you know, and to really hear them and take them in, and then perhaps to be heard and to ask them to take her in and to perhaps contemplate. There's something in her that just feels like she can't and won't tolerate whatever that unknown space is. So I know I'm kind of saying a bunch of different things at once, but they all kind of feel connected in some way.
Well, they do. And I think in the reunion, that's where I saw Lisa a little differently. I remember going, oh, yeah, she's like, where is she from, New York or New Jersey or something?
Yeah, she's from New York.
Yeah, so she is very direct. And I think that's why she sees Jen. I think she gets it, you know, like there's a way that she doesn't pull any punches, and she's actually not trying to be mean. I don't get that she's trying to be mean. She's got meanness underneath there that she doesn't really, and the meanness is more, I would say, judgment,
Right.
that she doesn't quite own. She does, because she holds herself in such high regard. I think she, also wants to be around people that she also holds in high regard. And if you don't meet that standard, she doesn't really want to give you the time of day. She was very dismissive in lots of at least the way it was edited, it looked like, look, I don't have time for this shit. I'm here to have a good time. I don't want to have to like meet you in your insecurity or where you are. I don't want to do it.
That's kind of another hit I get off her in terms of her relationship with Heather, where I do get this sense that she sees in the place. Part of the reason why she doesn't want to see Heather's vulnerability, one, is because, yeah, in some ways it might invite her to like kind of think differently about LDS. But two, I do kind of feel this sense in her of like, that's a fucking mess. I don't want to look at that in myself. I don't want to know where I'm vulnerable. Like, I don't want to know my own insecurities. Heather wears it so, because Heather's sitting there kind of like a bleeding heart being like, deal with my insecurity. And I think
I'm a mess. And Lisa's like, fucking, I got it together. I don't want to see my mess.
Yeah. I mean, it really does feel like two sides of it's like the yin and the yang. It's like, there's a way that Heather is kind of like, deal with my mess, see my mess, recognize my mess, have feelings for my mess.
Love me for my mess.
Right. And there's a demand in there. And then with Lisa, it's just like, again, I don't want to know it. I don't want to see it. I don't want to know my mess. I don't want to see my mess. There's not room for my mess. That's why I'm so drawn to this place in her that does shut things down so quickly, because with her, it's like, it's kind of like you're saying, with her, it's just like, go, 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 go. Next thing. But there is a kind of, there's an agitation there. It's like what happens for Lisa if she's not on the go, if she sits still, or even coming back to the car thing. Since you brought that in, I'm kind of sitting with it, and it really, like, there really is this deep split. It's like there's this deep split between what I say I am, and then what I'm actually doing is so different. And it's like, as I'm sort of remembering her in the car, and the guy's actually saying to her in the car, you can actually go faster. And it's like, she's literally not hearing him, which, by the way, this is also so interesting, because it's so interesting that the woman who is always on the go, isn't driving fast in the car at all, right? But there was this kind of like vacant look in her eye where she was just literally checked out.
I think she was scared.
Oh.
What I pick up on her in that quickness is a deep anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a very deep anxiety. And I see it with her family. When she was teaching her kid to drive. And it was like, like this poor kid, he was so good with her. But I was like, can you make anybody more nervous as they're driving for, the fourth, fifth time? You can hear her diatribe. I mean, I've taught both my boys to drive, so I felt so bad for this kid to be having to hold his mom's anxiety. And he was amazing. First of all, I thought he did great, but just that part of it. And then also, I think her husband tried to slow her down. Like, there's more than work. And she's like, nope, not going to have it. Like, This is our family. The fact that her kids are like in this entrepreneurial, and she's very proud. Like, I mean, I can only imagine if these kids have any sort of failure in their life, what that's going to mean. Look at what she can't see,
Well, and it's interesting because, I mean, now that you sort of name her fear, like, that's a lot of what it feels like to me too, in terms of the place that won't take people in. Like, when people are bringing things to her and she just immediately shuts it down. Yeah, it does feel like a quality of it feels, I think I said this before, like a lack of safety. Like, if I slow down long enough to take in what Heather is saying, oh, okay, I'm starting to get hits. Or what Whitney is saying, it's like, I don't feel safe here. And so when I just dropped into it for a moment, it was this feeling of like, if I'm Lisa and I drop my guard on for that moment to sort of take one of these women in, I suddenly got the energy of I could be attacked. Like, I could get attacked here. And so obviously it makes me curious. I mean, we don't know about all the details of her history, but it makes me curious about the energy of attack in ways that she may have been attacked. I just want to sit with it for one more second, if you're okay with it. If I'm Lisa and it's like, Whitney's sitting there or Heather's, yeah, it's just like, the energy that comes through me when I kind of drop into Lisa and hold this possibility of slowing down is just this immediate rage that wants to come through, but it's saying, don't attack me, and so it just feels like there is something in her that's really on guard around attack. And when I say that, it's kind of like I feel like part of what's driving her. Yeah, I feel like on one level it's the fear of attack. Like if I keep going, I'm moving too fast to be attacked. But what I also feel is if I slow down, well, then I'm going to have to feel this place inside where presumably at some point I had some experience of being like energetically or perhaps even literally attacked. And I don't want to feel that, I don't want to feel the impact. I don't want to know that about my life. That's sort of what it is. Like, I don't even want to know that, and then this religion works for me great because it's all about perfection, and being the best that you can be. Go, 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 go. And to me, this really makes sense because we do see there's a lot of vulnerability in her. And, when she does get triggered, the emotion was real. And she has a heart, which is part of why I like her.
Well, in terms of core, it's like that psychopathy is so strong. There's like a very specific driving energy that feels protective. I think that she's also experienced deep betrayal. Maybe that was more familial in some way, like with the parents. If the parents divorced, I don't know how old she was, what happened around any of that. But what you're saying around the defending feels totally spot on. And the fear and the anxiety, and she protects that vulnerability. Mm-hmm. She's not going to show that to anybody. I think her and what's her name, Meredith, they understand each other pretty well. And she's very gracious. I saw her with other people be very, very real and soft.
And it's interesting too, because I'm just thinking about like the language, like when she went back to her husband. First of all, I want to say, I feel like I'm feeling some of the depth of her vulnerability right now. And it really, it does, it touches, she feels very vulnerable and like you said, kind of very scared and kind of like in that place, a little frozen and confused. But I think it's interesting that like when she stormed backstage to her husband, she literally said to him, like she was like, oh, they're going on and on. It's like abusive. And I just think that language is interesting in the context of this conversation. I think what she was articulating is like, I'm being attacked for who I am. And it's abusive. Because again, that whole sequence in the reunion did pop to me. And as I said up top, it just felt like we were getting into something that was so core to both their experiences. And so suddenly I'm just kind of having this feeling of like, I wonder if there was a quality to like early experiences in life of I am being attacked for who I am. And it's kind of merciless and they're going, and it feels abusive. So that would make sense. So when people come at her with something like a Whitney or a Heather, it's that thing that I'm talking about of like, I'm shutting this down. I might go and think about it on my own in my bedroom, but I am not giving you the opportunity to sort of get in there. And then again, it's that voice. It's like, don't attack me. But the other thing too that I just wanted to say in response to what you just said, and it helps me, I think, potentially understand her relationship to Meredith more, because it is true that she has a softness to Meredith. And I also think when you look at Meredith, she's someone who's so kind of like like wishy-washy and defers to others and sort of lets others run the show, and which makes sense because she talked about her childhood experiences of sort of being torn between her two parents and kind of wanting to pacify conflict, and that's just how I saw her. She just felt so, even just in the reunion, the way she was sort of dealing with conflict, it was just, she's so kind of mushy and not there. So I can imagine for someone like Lisa, Meredith is going to feel so safe because she's never going to attack you.
Because she's going to be in complete control. Mm-hmm. That ultimately, I think if I'm not in control, careful. Mm-hmm. The control piece is where I think Heather and her can't can't let go. They both develop this deep need to have some sort of control. I think Lisa's came on earlier. I think Heather, there's something about the way they hold control, the way they experience it with each other that tells me that Lisa's is more, I don't know, like it's had a chance to mature more. It's like it has a different voice to it, where I think Heather's came on maybe after the divorce, and it came like a complete whip around from the place she'd been controlled. It's like she's like, no, I have the reins now, and this is what it looks like. Where I think Lisa's was more like, things are really out of control. I have to be in charge. If I'm not in charge, nobody else is going to be in charge. I've got this. Fuck out of my way.
And then it was so interesting too, because Heather just had such a clear, deep need to punish Lisa. It was like nothing Lisa said. Like there was nothing that Lisa could have done or said that would have pleased Heather. That
annoyed me so much. Lisa couldn't say anything that wasn't even related to Heather. Like they were talking about somebody. Oh, it was, what's the husband's name? What's the stripper person?
Whitney's, I think it's Justin.
Yeah. So those two, I think, were talking about their experience of being excommunicated from the church. And, Lisa was saying, hey, my family divorced. That wasn't my experience. Like my husband has been divorced and we're still members of the church and you can hold your faith. What, she was saying. And Whitney was just like I said, a dog with a bone. Lisa can't get a word out without Heather being on top of her, wanting to shut her down.
Yeah, I'm curious, like what is that? Like that need to punish, what is that? Like I'm going to make you pay?
Yeah, I think we touched it a bit. I think that it's, first of all, misdirected. This is that deep anger that you were talking about. And maybe I'm going to make you pay for still being able to be in this system in the way that you are. I'm going to make you pay for thinking that you're better than me. Like she really sees that Lisa thinks she's better than her.
And so I just noticed it's like there was this deep desire in Heather to punish Jen, for her to be excommunicated. It's like she wants people to rally around her and basically say, yeah, we see what you see, Heather, and she's out. And we're taking your side and we're kicking her out. And there's
her and Whitney are two little peas in a pod when it comes to that. So I'm suspicious that it's like some sort of family thing, in there. The two of them have to be so involved in everybody's business all the time. There's something that feels like it was learned.
And for me, there's something about that energy of kick them out, Well, I mean, it's so interesting, right? Because Heather got kicked out. She got kicked out of the marriage. I mean, not officially kicked out of the church, but kind of unofficially kicked out of the church. Yeah, and then Heather wants to kick Jen out, and it's outraging her that she's not getting kicked out. But it also kind of makes me wonder with Heather, it's like, so what parts of yourself are you kicking out? How do you kick yourself out? Because it's just such a vibrant energy. The energy of kicking someone out, pushing them out of the room, that is a strong energy. And as you know, that's not an energy that just goes away once someone's not around to target it at.
No, because it's now you're in the room and all you're doing, it's kind of like when you're trying to close a loop by getting somebody out and then you keep talking about them while they're gone. They're not even a part of it anymore. It's like, that is the energy that's here. Maybe it's something about, again, being seen, trying to create some room for her. And she won't. Well, this is the thing with her. Like, do you think she seems to be fairly reflective, but there is something disowned?
Yeah, I think it's her cruelty. I mean, I think it's just as simple as that. It's like, and I remember this. I mean, as someone who was picked on, I was picked on a whole bunch as a kid. And then I remember the pleasure I got out of picking on other kids because it gives you a sense of like power and, it's like you're paying it forward, in sort of the worst way possible. And I think with Heather in the place where she has been banished, there is a part, this is what I was saying earlier, where it's like, I don't trust you. Like, I don't trust what's disowned. And I think there is something in her that really wants to push other people out. I think there's a part of her that would enjoy, because yeah, it's not fair. It happened to me, so I get to do it to you. And I think because she is a good girl, she's never going to want to let herself know that part of her, because heaven forbid, you know, she's had such an investment in being good. I mean, it's a whole part of her whole story. I've been good. I've been good. I've been good. And she's someone who's been so invested in being good while at the same time questioning her own goodness and her own worth. And so for someone like that, it's like, if you let yourself know your own cruelty, I have to imagine for someone like Heather, it's gonna confirm her worst fears about herself, which is like, oh my God, there are parts of me that are actually bad, you know, quote unquote. And of course, if I were working with her, I would want to support her to understand, like, no, this is just your humanity. We all have cruelty. This came from the cruelty you endured. But if you're disowning it, it's going to leak out in these destructive ways where you actually are like acting out towards people.
Well, look, you know, in that system, there is such a narrative of good and bad and right and wrong, what you do, what you don't do. And when things come that you don't want to see, I mean, did you see the Book of Mormon? Turn it off. You didn't see it? Oh
no,
my gosh, that's one of my favorite little numbers in it is this, you know, thing where it's that song, Turn It Off. So like if something's happening, you just turn it off. So that's the way I see some of these women. And with Lisa, it is that definite switch. Nope, I'm not going to see it. You just turn it off. That's what you do. You don't look. You don't see it. You just rise above it, put on a smile, and you just walk away. Turn it off. Not gonna look here.
Yeah, and I will say, this is actually leading me to another point of connection between Heather and Lisa, which is I feel like much in the same way that I said I don't think Lisa really wants to kind of tolerate sort of taking Heather in. I think she's reached a place where she does not want to take in any nuance or complexity when it comes to Jen. Certainly. And Lisa too. She won't open up to it. She won't. It is that energy of you're out. And in this place, I refuse to drop my guard for 1 second to truly sort of take you in and who you are and what's here and to let it affect me. And it feels like underneath that is kind of a fear of like, I won't get it back in return.
I haven't.
Right. So let me ask you a question, and you touched on this a little bit earlier, but I'm curious what you make of Lisa's softening towards Jen and sort of bringing her into the fold towards the end of the season. What was your take on that?
I think that they are both deeply misunderstood in their communication styles. And I think that Lisa really has an understanding that when Jen says something, she says it out of hurt, or when she reacts in these really big over-the-top ways, that it comes from a level of hurt that she seems to understand. And what's interesting to me, actually, is that she can see that in Jen, but she can't see it with Heather, that Heather is hurt too.
Well, because they wear it so differently.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that Heather's is closer to Lisa's, which is part of why she can't see it. And I think Jen, because she is her cruelty is so apparent, it's just like she goes for the jugular. And I think there's something about that directness, again, that I think is something that Lisa can trust. It's weird because I don't want to say untrustworthy, but you know, that's somebody that I would watch for, because it's such a quick flip and it's a deep one and it's got a lot of energy to it. And I think Lisa really respects her. You know, I think she has a deep respect for her, which I don't think she has, for whatever reason, for Heather.
As I hear you talk, it's interesting to me because I do think there's a major point of connection between Jen and Lisa where, do you remember when Jen was kind of finally disclosing to her husband like how upset she was about him not being there for her father's death? And she made this comment where she said, basically she was saying like, I didn't realize it at the time or something like that. I didn't realize it, but basically I was sitting there sort of like making these funeral arrangements and dealing with my father's death. And I was so scared and lost. And I had to basically like pretend to be so strong. And when she said that, that was one of those moments where I was like, what you're saying right now is the metaphor for your entire life. Like I could just feel that. Like you are someone who feels so lost and scared and you are constantly pretending to be strong. And so it's interesting to me in light of kind of everything we just explored with Lisa, it feels like Lisa's very much the same way. Like these are two women who both feel very scared and lost, but are kind of, puffing up their chests and pretending to be strong and pretending to have it together. I'm just smiling. I'm thinking of like Lisa in the car. I mean, to me, it's like so endearing, like her driving in the car. It is such a metaphor, right? It's like, I'm the badass driver. But then it's just like the scared, woman sort of carefully eyeing the road. But yeah, it's like that these are two women who are really sort of doing everything they can to sort of protect against their own inner experience of fear. And like, I don't maybe know what I'm doing.
And that letting go, there's something about both of Jen and, well, I actually find this with almost all the housewives, to be honest. Like letting go of something is so difficult. Like to say I was wrong and Jen actually does, but it doesn't last. There's something. And it feels so incredibly sincere, but I think the hurt goes in so deep that if anything reflects that hurt again, it's like she's right back there and it's almost like she forgot that she already forgave something.
Well, that's why I was going to ask you about this too. I'm curious about your take on Jen. To your point, she was interesting to me. Like I kept imagining working with her because there was a way I felt her like reflective, and there were moments where like once she calmed down, you could see her. She would take it in, like in the bathtubs. I mean, I really saw her take in what Heather was saying around like the fear of friendship. And then I saw her making an effort, setting Heather up on the blind date. I really was like, okay, she's really taking something in here. And I feel this capacity in her to self-reflect and to possibly learn and grow. But then at the same time, it's like you said, it's like the split is deep and the switches fast. And when she's off, she is off. The part of her that can take things in, I'm like, oh, I'd be so interested in working with her because I feel like she's got powerful energy. She's an interesting woman. Like I'd love to support her to get more consciousness around sort of what she's doing. But then when she flies off the handle, I'm like, I wouldn't want to be anywhere near this woman. You can't talk her off the ledge. And recently, as of this recording, there's been sort of like leaked things lately of people secretly recording her as she's like exploded at her employees. And truthfully, it's vicious. I mean, it's abusive. And so I don't know. I'm just sort of curious, like where you land with her. Is she someone who you think has kind of an immediate capacity to start cultivating more awareness of her behavior to the point that she could actually start to understand, I do have to be responsible for the ways that I react, and the ways that I'm reacting are destructive. I don't have an excuse for acting that way, and let me start making new decisions.
Well, yeah, I actually do. And I want to say something about her also from a systemic point of view. I think that people deeply misunderstand her reactions and her voice, the way that she brings it, in the same way that I see that happening in our culture today, where people, call out people of color when they're angry, or, something in that narrative where the voice comes out and all this projection about how it's coming out is around, this is inappropriate for what's actually happening, when they don't understand what, in this case, Jen is actually holding, because she's hearing something, not just personally, again, she's hearing something about her culture and all the, like the type of things that I can't remember exactly what came out and what was said. But when she went back in the reunion to talk to her husband and she was sobbing, I felt her. I understood what she was holding. And I don't think a lot of people, especially on that cast, see that, especially Heather. Heather refuses, because I think her cruelty has impacted Heather so deeply. But I don't think that Jen sees her behavior as cruel. She does after, in some way. I'm stumbling through this a bit because it's hard to language, but what I saw is that Jen hears things in a way that is so deeply rooted in her being around being seen a certain way, and she takes it to another level. It's not just about her as a person. It's about her culture, her who she is in society. And it's so heavy and it's so big. And then she reacts from that place. And she reacts kind of from her, like in the same way that we're talking about Lisa being New York, right? Like in a way that gets deeply misunderstood. So then she kind of gets gaslit on top of it. And then that becomes a whole nother thing. Yeah. And it's like, she can't, I feel this place in her that's like, I can't get out of this. Like, there's no way out. People cannot actually see what I am trying to say. And so that deep misunderstanding, and that's where Lisa, I think, actually sees her. I think Lisa gets that on some level, so can hold it.
I mean, it just makes me chuckle because I feel like if you were to ask me or anyone sort of going into the season who you think would kind of ultimately hold that space, I feel like the last person would be Lisa. And it's so interesting, right? Because it's Heather, and this speaks to kind of what I was saying about sort of not trusting her doing and saying all the right things. She's kind of the wokest one. But on that stage, as you said, there she is in her cruelty. And it's, we see what's really sort of going on under there. Like, there's not a lot of space you're giving to this. And meanwhile, by the way, and I want to be clear, I'm not passing judgment on this, but it's like Mary's over there saying some pretty interesting things. And so, yes, I do think it's interesting that Heather truly had nothing to say or to comment on in relationship to some of what you might call the problematic things that Mary was saying. But meanwhile, on the flip side of things, had no problem actively shutting Jen down when Jen was trying to bring up things related to her own experience of being a woman of color. And again, I just have to point out that this is a woman, meaning Heather, who really prides herself on being quote unquote woke. I thought that was all very, very interesting. It was interesting.
We will have to have a whole, Mary is like just a whole nother species in this show.
She needs her, she requires an entire episode. She
needs a whole, yeah.
But I think the one thing I want to bring in about Jen, I love everything that you're saying, especially as far as like culturally and the systemic, but I also want to bring in something personal that I've kind of always felt with her, which is I've just really heard her in the place where she said, like, I was the oldest. And there was sort of basically like certain responsibilities that come with that. And to me, it's connected to this experience of fear I feel in her, where I really get the sense as Jen, it's like, there is no space for me to have needs. There's no space for me, to be the child who needs something. And that, to me, there's a lot of where the rage comes from. I just hear this voice. It's like, it's not fair. And if I'm this sensitive person, and she strikes me as sensitive, she strikes me as vulnerable. And it's like, I'm not allowed to have any of my fear. And maybe actually this also does relate to the systemic, because it feels like there was a cultural piece to this of like, you're the oldest, this is how it is, you've got to be the sort of the strong one, the big girl. And so she's sort of sitting there like, wait a second, I've got all this fear and uncertainty, I don't know what's going on, and there's not space for any of this. And as I'm saying this, it does, I mean, I don't know if this is true, but like what comes to me intuitively, it does kind of feel like I'm looking at these younger siblings who get space for that kind of thing in a way that I don't. And I just, even as I say this, it's like something in me freezes. And it starts to almost feel a bit like a survival thing. Like if I'm not allowed to have needs, how am I safe? If I can't ask for help or cry out for help, who's going to help me when I need help? And it really feels like someone sort of clinging to a life raft for dear life.
I totally agree with what you're saying there. And like just another facet of it, it's like she knows what being unsafe means for her family. And so any sort of threat, like she's like, if you go after my family, that's it. There's no question I'm going to fight for life. And I think these threats that come in touch that place where it is life and death for her and maybe her family.
Yeah, I think everything that you're saying right now is so interesting. And it really brings me back to a point that you were making before when you were saying that basically you would have a hard time ever trusting Jen because of the way that she, in her cruelty, will betray the people around her. To me, there's something about the way that she betrays her friends that also feels very connected to exactly what you're talking about right now in terms of that cultural piece around survival and feeling at danger in the world. And what I mean by that is this: I've always been so drawn to the way in which Jen did throw Meredith under the bus because it was so flagrant. I mean, she truly went out of her way to expose Meredith's marital issues, and it was messy, it was sloppy. She could barely hide her hand in the whole thing. And so for me, I was really sort of drawn to what was going on for Jen there, especially when she's someone who's so adamant in demanding loyalty from the people around her that she could then go and be so actively disloyal. And it was really interesting because when I dropped into Jen towards Meredith, when she was basically dishing these rumors about Meredith's marriage, it really was this sense of, you betrayed me, so I get to betray you now. And just to be clear, for me as Jen, the betrayal that I'm perceiving is that Meredith did not have my side against Mary Cosby. Meredith betrayed me in that way, so now I get to betray Meredith. It's like, you betrayed me, now you're going to pay the price. But what's so interesting to me about it is that there is this quality to it that for me goes much, much deeper than typical housewives alliances. Because we see that a lot, right? A lot of housewives demand undying loyalty from their friends/allies. And they define friendship as, you got to have my back no matter what. And if you don't, you're betraying me as a friend. That's pretty standard in the Housewives universe. But with Jen, when I drop into it, it feels like something much, much deeper. When I'm Jen and I'm dropping into what I expect or want or desire from Meredith as a friend, the words I keep hearing is, it's us against the world. Like, I really think that's the mindset that Jen comes from. It's us against the world. And in this place where it's us against the world, it feels like exactly what you're talking about. And I've always sensed this. It feels like survival. It feels like there's something in Jen that feels like there is an actual threat coming from the outside world toward her, and that she is not safe in the world. And such that when she brings you in as a friend or brings you in as a loved one, she is bringing you into this ethos that says it is us against the world. We have each other's back, not just in terms of petty fights and arguments, in terms of survival. And I have to imagine that, yes, this is something that she learned from her family of origin, that in her family of origin, it was a sense of it's us against the world. So that when someone like Meredith doesn't agree with her in an argument, which to our minds is just sort of a superficial thing that ultimately doesn't really have much consequence in terms of the larger scheme of their lives, I think for Jen, she's perceiving that as a fundamental betrayal of this code. It's about survival. It's about safety. So if you're betraying me in this way, it means that you don't care about my survival, that you're like hanging me out to dry to potentially be killed or attacked. And so, yes, I think there's absolutely something here where it's hard for Jen to distinguish between this place inside that feels like she's got to fiercely protect herself and her family and her own from these situations that really have nothing to do with that. And that's why she's felt so justified in going after Meredith's marriage, because she truly feels Meredith betrayed her in a life or death way, and therefore Meredith deserves to be hurt back. And I think that's why it's so hard for Jen to understand that she has in fact done something wrong. I think she feels more than justified in what she's done.
And that's the place where I think she could use, like if I was working with her, it would be to find out more, or I would actually have her work with somebody who is a person of color who can actually hold that with her and say, yes, this is real. This is something that I see. It's a real threat. And the threats that you are in with these women are not the threat that you are fighting.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I notice when you say that, like, it touches me, that possibility of creating that experience of just validation for a voice that feels like it's not gotten validated.
Exactly. And that's what I think that's really, whenever I hear her, it's like, no, you're not hearing what I'm saying. You're actually not getting it. That's what I hear over and over again. And I'm like, they're not. Yes, you're right. They are not. Mm-hmm. Like I want a validator. I want to say you are so right. And you live in Utah, man. Like you are getting missed.
Yeah. I will say I really did feel for her at the reunion when she explained kind of her experience of being with that hypnotist. Obviously, she was the hot button of the group, but, just the way that she was experiencing that of being, the woman of color. And it's sort of like there's all this energy sort of being directed at her and just the lack of awareness around that.
I had all kinds of feelings when I saw that. I was like, that was something else.
It's interesting. I don't know if you ever watched The Real World, but, they just released, actually, was it last night? Last night, they basically had this reunion, like this mini season of the first season of The Real World, and they literally put them all back in the same loft. So it's like 30 years later, right? And
30 years? Oh my God.
Isn't it crazy?
Are you serious?
Yeah, it's crazy. Did you watch it? Did you watch The Real World? Did you watch that first season?
I did, but oh my God, 30 years is so long ago. I couldn't even tell you. I think I only watched maybe a few seasons of it, but it's kind of when reality TV was the new thing. And I had a love-hate relationship with it.
There was this, one of the cast members was named Kevin. His whole kind of archetype as perceived by, both the house and then the public was kind of the angry black man, because he was very vocal and, would get, was really passionate about the cause and had things to say and was not afraid to like be intense, and it caused conflict in the house. And it was just really touching watching it last night, because actually it was Heather who was she's a woman of color. She's black. So it was like Heather and, Kevin were the two black people in the house. And she was the one who said last night on the show, 30 years later, she was like, Kevin, you were right about everything you were saying. And she was like, I didn't even want to see it. Like, I didn't want to look at it. I wanted to write you off. I didn't want to know how it is affecting me. And she was just like, basically we all need to acknowledge now that everything you were talking about back then is what's being talked about now. And like you were, it's weird to say you were ahead of your time, because it was of that time, it's of this time, but like, essentially you were ahead of your time and you were right in what you were saying. And I don't know, I found it so incredibly moving. And what was also additionally moving about it was sort of later in the episode, Kevin's kind of reflecting, and there's this point where he just gets so touched and moved, and he's basically saying like, yeah, these are the things that I've believed in all this time, and this is what I've been fighting for and been passionate about as an activist. And then he says, I wish I could have just been more accepting of where they were back then, so that I think he could be better heard, basically. And just that was really touching too. Just that he had that own reflection for himself, not apologizing for the cause in any way, or not even really apologizing for the way he went about it, but just this really sincere wish of like, I wish I could have been more accepting. The whole thing was really beautiful. It really touched me. Anyway.
Yeah. And I wish for him that people would have been able to hold his righteous anger better.
Right.
That they actually would have listened and allowed what he was saying to touch them at the time. So yeah, there's something about people in this culture have to hold when they are trying to bring information out that does not want to be heard. Yeah. Because it's like a whole nother level of lifting something higher that they've been carrying all along. And I don't know, man, it touches me, and it makes me want to, I'm starting tomorrow my class to really learn more about how to hold this for myself, to learn more about this experience that we are all a part of. And maybe when I'm through this, I'll be able to talk about this a little bit differently and a little bit better. But, right now I just know that I see it and I feel it, and I don't know what to do about it, but I like that it's in this platform, like there's something about Salt Lake that for me, it, especially we've talked about cults, we've had these conversations about how kind of powerful organizations bring people in to their fold. And then if they disagree, excommunicate, really push people out, and like what that does on a personal level, on just a level of being able to feel yourself as safe and that you can be who you are regardless of what you believe and how you believe it. And yeah, I'm really glad that at first I was like, oh, 'cause I have some friends that are Mormon, and I was wondering how they were going to feel about it, because these people all seem to be like living their life so differently. And I'm so curious what the church thinks about this. I'd be interested to hear, because I know, like, even in that play that I mentioned earlier, like my friend was like, they were pretty much advised not to go see it, not to support it. And I think it's an interesting system.
All right. I feel like we really dove deep into that kind of chestnut of what was going on between Heather and Lisa. This feels like a good resting point to me.
Yeah.
All right, Piper. Well, as always, it's nothing but a pleasure, and I can't wait to have you back. I feel like definitely have an urge for us to maybe explore New Jersey. You watch New Jersey. Yeah. There's a lot going on. And then you also are now watching Dallas too, so we could do a Dallas episode.
Kind of digging Dallas, I have to say. I'm so glad. I don't know. There's something about this feels like a more mature in some ways. There's so much kindness between them, a willingness to sort of see each other. So I'm so interested in like, what was their first season like? And
well, actually, the first season of Dallas is one of the only Housewives seasons I've not watched. I tried to watch the first episode and I just couldn't do it. And then I got back into it for season 2. I mean, if you ever do want to go back, I would say start with season 2. It is very, I mean, you don't even know about Leanne, who was like, Leanne was the anchor. I mean, she was the Nene. She was the Lisa Vanderpump. She was the star of the show. But she was one of these Real Housewives who the very thing that made her the star vehicle was also problematic. And so by the end of last season, she reached she reached the end of her welcome. But she was a lightning rod. Everything kind of organized around her. But she's the one who brought in Deandra, and she and Deandra were like best friends. And then literally you watched the disintegration of their friendship over the course of the show. And you also haven't yet really gotten into Deandra's relationship with her mother. I can't wait for you to see that because that's like a whole, it's amazing. Okay, great. Well, I'm excited to have you back. Thank you for being here. Thank you, listener, for being here. And if you want more, be sure to follow me on Instagram, Jamie Stein, JamiEstein. I have tons of Housewives and Bravo related content. I answer quick hit questions in my stories. So there's all sorts of great free content you can sink your teeth into. And of course, if you are feeling interested in doing some work together, head over to my website, hollywoodreadings.com. And otherwise, I will see you next time. Bye, guys.